listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch the TV and movies that remind us that we'd always rather call a woman a cunt than take 5 minutes to examine the inhumanity of the larger systems we've set up as a society. I'm Jodie.
I'm Andrea.
We watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Justice for Nurse Ratched? Question mark. This is such a hot take.
So as I said last week, I loved this book. It was the first book that I wrote like a real critical paper on in high school, where I had like my own thesis with outside sources and an idea that I came up with on my own. Mm-hmm. I've seen the movie a bunch of times, though not in quite a long time. I love this movie. I think age has a lot to do with it. I think it is very easy to watch this movie as a movie about like one person rebelling against then
the system.
And I
the
also
combine
think,
in the book.
Yeah. I also wonder if our being teachers have anything to do with it. Because I really thought about like having like somebody telling me like, don't let them see you smile until Christmas. Like that's kind of the like Nurse Ratched of it.
Yeah.
But so you texted me and said something like, I think I'm on Nurse Ratched's side.
I said, oh no, I think I'm on Nurse Ratched's side.
And I, watching it this time, totally was through almost all of the movie. Not all of the movie, that's not true.
Yeah.
But up to a certain point, and we can talk about that. I wonder if you had the same experience. But then the thing you pointed out today that I also noticed is there's, you know how like, I'm a little all over the place surprised. You know how when we watched Election and we talked about like people like finally starting to see Tracy Flick and what that movie really was. Yeah. There were still some people who didn't quite get it, but a lot of people were. It's like the opposite with this.
Yeah.
I'm seeing like there were some things, I think you found an article, I found an article, but for the most part, she's still, everybody sees her as this like unquestioned villain.
Well, and I think the stuff that you and I found, and we had to look, was more about the misogyny of the novel, like the misogyny of the character in the novel, right? And the way that she has no backstory, really. She's just pure evil.
Well, and we can, I don't want to, as another thing we talked about off mic is there's so much information about this movie.
So much.
And I know I often have the instinct to want to talk about it more in terms of the book when we have that.
Yeah.
But in this case, I don't know that we have enough space and time to do that.
No, we can just highlight a few of the differences because they are significant, and just the story of the reaction of the author. Yeah. Because it's very Stephen King.
Totally. And so when we get to Ratched as we work through our cast, maybe that's another way to move through this movie. I will read her first description in the book because it really But let's start where we typically start.
Right. So this is the 50th anniversary of this year of both my birth and this movie. Famously, the number one movie the year I was born was Jaws. This was number 2. It was the second highest grossing film. It grossed $163 million, and it was made for about 4.4. That's wild. Which was
double the original budget.
Yes, and it was basically funded by one of the producers. It came out on November 19th, 1975. It won 5 Academy Awards. It's one of only 3 movies to win all 5 of the big ones. Right. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and what, Screenplay?
Screenplay.
Yeah, which is nuts.
Especially considering how hard it seemed to have been to get this movie made.
Yes, yeah. And all of the
released.
Stuff nobody wanted it, really.
Yeah, I think Michael Douglas said literally everybody except the last one on their list.
Yeah, United Artists, I think. Or
that's right.
Yeah. So, nobody wanted it. It took 13 years, I believe, to get made. The rights were optioned by Kirk Douglas, whose son ended up producing it through all these different machinations. There's like a 13-year saga of like the Czech Republic and communism and the book getting confiscated on its way to Milos Forman.
Yeah. And the way it just seemed so destined for him.
Yeah, because it came back around. Yeah, so it ended up being produced by Michael Douglas, who was quite young. I think he was like 31 at the time. And it ended up coming back around to Milos Forman, who had fled to the U.S., fleeing communism. And it's just like...
Well, and that's what's so funny. I watched an interview with him where he was saying, like, because he'd only been in the States, I think, for 6 years at that point.
Yeah.
When they finally started making the movie. And he said, like, people were saying, like, this is an American movie. Like, what do you think? You have to be careful. And he was like, no, this is my story. I live, like, he felt really personally connected to the idea of somebody like McMurphy and these men being told what to do. And
he referred to, like, Nurse Ratched as the communist government, basically. He also had his own mental health episode when he finally got to the U.S., like, where apparently he was in a, like, kind of locked himself in a hotel for a month.
The Chelsea hotel, I read.
Yeah. Exactly. So I guess we'll just talk about him as director since we're kind of doing it anyway right now. But after he got to the U.S. and did Cuckoo's Nest, he also then went on to do Hair, The People versus Larry Flint, Man on the Moon, Ragtime, like just a interesting collection of movies. The quote that I read was he sees his adopted land, obviously the U.S., in terms of its best nonconformist and outsider traditions. And that's kind of what he connected to.
I really kind of fell in love with him while researching this. He's such a thoughtful but also practical filmmaker. For example, which I realized this time watching through how much of this movie is improvised.
Yeah.
He seemed to just really want to let these people live in these characters and say what felt natural to them. And you can really feel it in certain moments where, like, there's no way that was on the page, but it feels so real and lived in. And it seems like it had a lot to do with sort of how he ran his set. So. Yeah.
He also would, like, just kind of leave the camera on sometimes when they were interacting with each other, which this caused a little bit of a problem, but he didn't want to show any of the dailies to the actors, and like it caused Jack Nicholson to have this huge crisis of confidence and get really like frustrated and angry. So finally he showed Jack Nicholson some of his performance, and he kind of got his confidence back.
Yeah, but apparently that like was a real problem for the two of them kind of moving forward for a while. There's also a lot of, this is what I mean about him being practical, which I think was probably really frustrating for a lot of people, but it's like he would, I'm sure you heard about the one cinematographer being fired because he had started like sowing, like kind of like fueling those feelings of like lack of confidence with the actors, because apparently he wanted to take over.
Right.
So he got fired. And then there were a couple of other like casting choices where people got pulled last minute and things like that seemed to me not Milos being like an egomaniac or anything, but just being like, I'm serving the film, and whatever's best for the film, even if other people don't like it, is what we're going to do.
Yeah, there were actually a total of 3 cinematographers, I believe, like 2 main ones, and then one who just did the scene in the boat at the end. But yeah, he seems like a pretty fascinating character. I wish I had had time to watch more interviews with him, because I think the way that he directs this film is super interesting. It's like very controlling and also very not at the same time.
It's like he seems to know what he needs to control to allow for the freedom. And and stuff like the thing that I kept reading was that in all of the therapy scenes there are 3 cameras so that everybody's covered at all times, but nobody knows who's the focus. Right. And you do get these really beautiful, there's a really funny reaction of Nicholson in one of the therapy scenes. It's when they're talking about Harding's sexual problems with his wife or whatever, and Nicholson makes this really funny, like sweet kind of laughing face and puts his hand on his cheek, and it looks so like, it looks like natural. Nicholson more than McMurphy. It's so it just just a quick director's note. We almost had Hal Ashby doing this one as well. Our friend. There's so many of these movies where people pop in and out that we've talked about already. But he was replaced by Foreman. So, yeah, I think, like, the comparison to Ratched as the communist government in the Czech Republic that he came from, it's just, like, I keep thinking about how we've decided that this one woman is the personification of evil. Just, like, okay. At the risk of sounding like the feminist killjoy that I was always meant to be, 1975, the year I was born, is the first year a woman could get a credit card without her husband's signature. Right.
So, like, that woman does not have any fucking real power in the world.
until McMurphy gets there, things are running smoothly. And the fact that it's like a huge reveal at the end, and it is really fascinating to watch McMurphy, how he deals with it and all, but that only a couple of them are involuntary, kind of speaks to how tight the ship is run, that they all feel safe there. And it's really, I don't turn on her until she gets vindictive. And it's when she starts like pushing, like trying to prove her control just to prove it, even though it's causing a problem for everybody on the floor. But I'm also like, I don't always have the best impulse control with that stuff. And if McMurphy was in my classroom,
my God,
I might put my foot down that way too.
Well, she's also a cog in this huge system. I think I think the last time I watched this movie, we've talked about this briefly in the past, but like I always, I don't know, why do I feel like saying I'm an artist sounds like I'm saying I'm an asshole? Like, but I mean, maybe it does, but
I don't think it does.
I'm an artist and I make work about like the mental and physical.
Yes, this is so directly in your
medical
wheelhouse.
Complex. And like for a very long time, I was researching specifically the time period in which these hospitals were built and the systems and how they were originally planned to be versus what they became, which are basically like warehouses for the people that society doesn't want in society, right? And so like even if she is like a power hungry nurse, is not the evil here.
Right.
And I think that like maybe we can use that as a way to kind of go back to Ken Kesey's novel. Because even though he does make her the personification of evil, I think in his book, it is more like she is a part of a machine.
Well, and in fact, so the book, for listeners who haven't read it, it's written from Chief Bromden's perspective. He's schizophrenic in the book. And so the first time you see Nurse Ratched, it's through Bromden's eyes. And she's literally carrying in her bag, he says, she's carrying her woven wicker bag. It's a loose weave and I can see inside it. There's no compact or lipstick or woman stuff. So let's put a pin in that. She's got that bag full of 1,000 parts she aims to use in her duties today. Wheels and gears, cogs polished to a hard glitter, tiny pills that gleam like porcelain, needles, forceps, watchmaker's pliers, rolls of copper wire. And so it's such a direct connection to exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, we see her through the eyes of someone who is basically hallucinating.
And what he sees her with are these machinery parts. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And so translating that to the film, where they throw out both Chief Bromden's narration and the idea of the Combine, what you end up with is a woman as a villain.
Well, and it's also a woman as a villain. It's so interesting. I could talk about this forever because it's a woman as a villain that we just have to take as a villain, as opposed to in the book. The other thing I want to read is the way he sees her.
Yeah.
He is watching her approach the orderlies, and he's the only one who is seeing this exchange. So he says, I can see she's furious, clean out of control. She's swelling up, swells till her back splitting out of the white uniform, and she's let her arms section out long enough to wrap around the three of them 5-6 times. She looks around her with a swivel of her huge head. So she really lets herself go, and her painted smile twists, stretches to an open snarl, and she blows up bigger and bigger. Big as a tractor, so big I can smell the machinery, going back again to her being a part of the machine. Inside, the way you smell a motor pulling too big a load. I hold my breath and figure, my God, this time they're going to do it. Like, quite literally.
She's a monster.
She's a monster.
Yeah.
And the thing that's interesting to me here is the monstrous woman is such Grendel's mother. Like, we can go way back. Like, that's such a kind of like mythical figure. So to remove that, on the one hand, it's sort of a positive to be like, well, she could be a villain without being a physical monster.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's like, so it's literally just her,
just a woman.
The fact that she's a woman that makes her a villain.
And, this book, so we do need to talk a little bit about the book. So the book came out in 1962. He had worked in a VA hospital, and basically you can't separate this book from the early 60s.
Right.
It's basically, he had been a student at Stanford in creative writing. He's famously connected to the psychedelic movement. He volunteered for some experiments on the effects of LSD.
While he was working at the psychiatric hospital.
Yeah. And like, yeah, there's a whole thing in this book about, and in the movie, about like who decides who is sane and who isn't. Not to put words in his mouth, but I think he would say about this book that it is more about society's neglect and sort of distaste for and need to hide people that don't fit into the conformity of social norms.
100%.
You know, and it was about the government's intervention in Vietnam and the people who had come back even from World War II with trauma and had just been warehoused. Like, this was a much bigger screed against the U.S.'s treatment of people it considered undesirable than it was about one woman.
Right.
And
right.
in this movie, I feel like you lose some of that. It's there around the margins.
The movie really does feel way more that it's about McMurphy standing up to, again, like you said, this woman.
This evil woman, yeah.
And, like, helping these men gain some independence. And,
right.
And it's...
Well, and it can't be separated from the, like, machismo of it either. Like,
right.
the idea that, you know, the big sort of peak of the action right before the tragedy is that he gets Billy to have sex with Candy.
Yeah.
Like, it's... His machismo is what, like, and the fact that he brings women in, it's what attracts the other men to his lifestyle and who he is.
Right. And what in the book, the attack on Ratched is so much more graphic. It is implied pretty heavily that his attempt is to rape her, and he like rips her uniform open, and there's a huge description of her chest, and it's like she's been this sexless thing this whole time, and the way he sort of like almost defeats her is by sexualizing her.
Yeah.
It's really, really gross. Also, that the reason he's in prison in the first place is statutory rape of a 15-year-old girl he says he thought was 18.
What's in the movie this week, Andrea? Is it racism, sexism, or statutory rape?
Guess what?
All three!
All three.
Woohoo!
The book
Trifecta.
The book is way more racist than the movie, but the movie doesn't do... The way that McMurphy sort of is introduced and reacts to Chief Bromden in it, like...
Whoa, yeah. I forgot about that, too.
Yeah. Bad stuff.
Yeah.
But
yeah. No, I mean, like, we've got all three. It's a trifecta.
Mm-hmm. But man, this movie's so funny.
It is. I will say that let's just stick to the book. So Ken Kesey's reaction to the movie, I think, or lack of, because apparently, according to him, he's never seen it, or maybe accidentally saw it on TV once.
Well, he's butthurt because they didn't use the script.
He's butthurt because they didn't use the script. Also, though, I do think he has a point that, like, if the main character... If the whole point is that sanity and insanity are so close together, and you're looking at his book entirely through the lens of Chief Bromden, and then you take it and you completely change the narrator.
That's right.
You drop the, like, overarching idea of the machine of society and just make it a personality play about these people together. Like, I kind of don't blame him.
Yeah, I get that. And I don't know, watching Milosh talk about it, watching Foreman talk about it, it seemed to me a practical decision.
Totally.
This is what I mean, because he was like, it would be, first of all, the narration of Chief Bromden that sort of pulls the reveal that he can talk from the movie, and can hear and talk. That reveal, although whatever, I'm kind of whatever about that. But he was like, it would, for this movie the way it is, it would look really ridiculous to have to like show Bromden's schizophrenia on screen. Like, how would you do that in a way that felt grounded? Yeah. Which I sort of get, but also it is the movie is saying very different things than the book, for sure. Yeah,
I saw a quote from Kesey that said they took out the morality. They took out the Combine, the conspiracy that is America. So he sued for, reports say, either 5 or 6% of the film's gross, along with $800,000 for damages. And he eventually settled for 2.5% of the gross, which is not a small sum of money.
No.
Considering how much money this movie made.
Yeah, kind of good for him.
Yeah, I mean...
I'm sort of on everybody's side.
I know. Me too. Me too. So the actual screenplay for this movie was written by Lawrence Hauben and Bo Goldman. from the third person perspective, removing Bromden as the narrator.
Right.
And it was produced by Saul Zentz. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize if I'm not. And Michael Douglas, like we said. And Zentz personally financed the movie by borrowing against his company, Fantasy Records. And there was a play done of this before the movie came out that was written by Dale Wasserman. The reason that that's interesting to us is just because Jersey Tomato, Danny DeVito, played Martini in that before he played it in the movie.
That's right.
That we have really obvious and wonderful Jersey connection. Danny DeVito from Asbury Park, born in Neptune, born in the same hospital as Jack Nicholson.
Cute.
Yep. Pitkin Hospital, now called Jersey Shore University Medical Center. DeVito is one of the most Jersey people we've got. He named his production company with Rhea Perlman, Jersey Films. Mm-hmm. He was the celebrity spokesman in 2022 for Jersey Mike's Subs. There's more. I have more Jersey facts about him that I loved. Let's see. What was the other one? Oh, he was inducted into the 2010 New Jersey Hall of Fame for his services and contributions to arts and entertainment. He was a hairdresser.
I love that. That's my...
in New Jersey.
I think that's my favorite Danny DeVito fact.
Yeah, I know. He's the best. He went to... And this is such a... Like, the way that they describe, like, his young adult life, like, it says, while growing up in Asbury Park, his parents sent him to private schools, which... They sent him to Catholic school, of course, because it's Jersey. Mm-hmm. He attended Our Lady of Mount Carmel Grammar School. And then he went to a prep school for high school. Mm-hmm. But he took a job as a cosmetician at a sister's beauty salon after high school.
I think that's so cute. Yeah. I love him so much.
And the reason he went to the New York Academy of Dramatic Arts at first was to learn more about cosmetology. But then he fell in love with acting. It's incredible.
He's so sweet in this movie. I love him so much.
Oh, God, I know.
Another Jersey reference in the movie, they play Monopoly.
Oh, yes.
Which, if our listeners, if you don't know.
Marvin Gardens.
Marvin Gardens, for example. Yeah. All of the properties on the board are New Jersey references.
They certainly are.
Or Jersey locations, rather.
Yeah, yeah. Any other things about the sort of people running the show? I think we covered.
I mean, like you said, there's so much.
So much. But yeah, you could talk for an hour about just the Kirk Douglas to Michael Douglas 13-year pipeline. But other things about the production, the location, this is super important. Mm-hmm. It was shot in a working psychiatric hospital at the time, Oregon State Hospital. And our doctor in the movie, Dr. Crap, I lost it.
This is another thing in this movie. Nobody says anybody's name correctly. He introduces himself as Dr. Spivey, and then McMurphy immediately calls him Dr. Spivey.
Okay.
But I think it's Spivey.
Dr. Spivey. I'll just pick a third option.
Way. Yeah. Secret third way.
Yeah. Was actually the head psychiatrist at Oregon State Hospital at the time. He allowed them, his name was Dean Brooks, he allowed them to film, and they made him the doctor.
Not only allowed, I watched an interview with him. He's so funny. He was so excited. He was like, I think this will be great. I think it'll be therapeutic for our patients. I want to make sure that as long as they don't denigrate the patients and make them look kind of like stupid on screen.
Yeah. A lot of the patients had jobs on set.
85 of them had jobs on set.
Yeah. He encouraged them all to work on the movie and be in the movie. And he let them basically live in the hospital while they were filming. He also let them come in weeks ahead of time and watch ECT sessions.
Yeah.
Which,
I know.
I'm sure with consent, maybe, but
yeah, I wonder about.
Feel a little squishy about that.
Yeah, he seemed to care about his patients, but I also don't know what that means in 1975. A couple of things about that. I know that they had all of the lead ensemble actors pair with a different patient to shadow.
Yeah.
And then also Louise Fletcher talked about how they made her watch one of the sessions, and she was like, I guess it was so I could really connect with the thing that I was responsible for, which I think makes a kind of sense, but
yeah.
I don't,
But But yeah, they basically kind of moved into that hospital while it was working.
Yeah, there were some stories Michael Douglas told, and I don't know how much I buy this, but he was like, we didn't find out until later that a lot of them were criminally insane.
Sure.
And again, in 1975, who knows what that means?
Yeah.
But that one of the biggest known arsonist in Oregon was in that hospital, and they had him working with the electric team.
Oops.
Whoopsie.
Whoops.
Whoops. So
Someone
again,
didn't read the fine print there.
Yeah. Again, who knows how true that is, but it made me laugh.
Yeah.
So I want to share that.
Yeah.
I was really fascinated too, just talking about these patients. I saw a couple of them talking about their time on set, and both of them had really positive things to say. One of them was like, I just felt like another member of the crew. I never felt like I was being mistreated. It was really great to have this sort of, which I'm sure I can imagine, have a sort of purpose for those months while they were shooting. And so, as troublesome as some of this is, I think there's a lot to be said for that aspect of it.
Yeah. And I don't know this to be a fact, but based on the historical context, I would assume that part of the reason this was possible was that it was 1975 and the populations were dropping in these hospitals at that time because of deinstitutionalization.
Right. This is sort of the tail end of that big movement, right?
Yeah. I mean, other movies about... So I think one of the reasons that it was hard to get this movie made in the first place was because other movies previous to this one, like Snake Pit and Titicut Follies, were these horror shows filmed in mental hospitals or filmed about being in mental hospitals. And the production companies, the distributors were like, we don't want another one of those. No one wants to sit through that. And they were like, no, we're going to make it funny, which they actually did. But because this is our podcast, I am going to take a moment here just to talk about the state hospital. So these hospitals that we're filming in, like if you think of a mental hospital, the image that we come up with is from these films. And they're all or almost all Kirkbride buildings, which I could do 7 podcasts on, but all I'll say is the look that they have is really iconic. And the reason they look that way is because of the man who directly designed them. There's this huge treatise on how a mental hospital should be built, not by an architect, but by a doctor, Thomas Story Kirkbride. And there was this huge boom in building these hospitals in the late 1800s, Oregon State Hospital being a classic example of it. And so the big open hallways, the giant windows, even though they have the grates on them, the big, huge parlor areas, like all of that look is specific to the buildings built at this time. They all look like this with various, variations. The reason that that's interesting to me is just because of the way that it influences like our pop culture idea of what a mental hospital is, right? We always picture this one type of building. Andrea, do you know where the first Kirkbride building was built?
No, but was it New Jersey?
No, but it was Philadelphia.
Dang. Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was Philadelphia. So Kirkbride was a Quaker.
I was going to say, the way you were describing it right now, I wanted to ask you if it was like in his thought was that this was actually more therapeutic and kinder to them.
Yes. He designed the buildings and like tried to prescribe locations for the buildings that would allow the natural environment to positively influence the patients. So large windows, he wanted them built on hills overlooking nature. He wanted large grounds. He wanted even the way that the wings were staggered back would allow airflow, because obviously this is pre, HVAC, that would allow airflow to come through the buildings. There were all these things in the way that he planned them that were meant to respect. It was referred to as moral treatment. So it was very paternalistic, but it was also very Quaker. It was almost very like kind-hearted in a way. There weren't a lot of answers for mental illness at the time. So it was like fresh air and walking in nature and the outdoors, all of which are not bad ideas. But of course, what ended up happening immediately was we decided, great place to put our undesirable people. And they became overcrowded almost instantly as soon as they opened. And so that's why there were so many built, because they became poorhouses. They became places that husbands would put their first wives. Like they just kind of exploded over a 30 to 40 year period. So I'm not sure why I went on that tangent, other than that I like talking about Kirkbride buildings. But...
I think it's fascinating. Now I want to talk about Kirkbride, because now that I know he's a Philly guy, of course he is, because there's literally a hospital called Kirkbride's Hospital, like his hospital, not a Kirkbride hospital.
Yeah.
His hospital was also the Institute of Pennsylvania Hospital. And I just want to share this. Pennsylvania Hospital for Mental and Nervous Diseases.
Oh, yeah. The names of these places were crazy.
And the Kirkbride Center, there's this I know, the Blackwell Human Services Campus. One of the buildings there is still called the Kirkbride Center. So
yeah, and UPenn has this big, huge magic lantern slide collection that they would show like for entertainment pre-movies at the Kirkbride Hospital.
Oh, cool!
I went and saw it once. It's literally in a big cabinet in the office of one of the research librarians that she let me come in and check out.
That's so cool.
So, yeah, I think the reason that this is significant to me, there's a couple of reasons. One, I think the idea of filming in a mental hospital that is actively treating people seems crazy until you realize that the process of deinstitutionalization, which was spurred by new psychiatric medications, allowing people to go back to the community, but also was done very poorly and never really gave those people community resources once they kicked them out of their hospital stays that they had been in for a long time, was well underway at this point and had been for a long time. And so there were probably empty wings of this hospital. And over the next 2 decades, they would empty out to the point where when you were a teenager in the 90s, there was one in almost every state that was abandoned that you could go crawl around in.
That's right.
And hopefully not get tetanus.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was also a big... I'm going to keep going back to Foreman and the sort of practicality of his work as a filmmaker. Because when he talked about... He's like, one of the things he said was, of course, we could have done it, I guess, on a soundstage, but I really wanted it to look authentic. And it feels so... You can just tell the difference. But the other thing he said is because it was filmed on location, and now you saying, you're probably right, that it's not like they had to clear a bunch of patients out. He was like, we could just set the lighting up and it would be that way all the time, and we never had to touch it. We could just flip a switch.
And if you've ever been in one of those buildings, which I'm sure most people haven't, that's a crazy thing to say, but I've been in many of them because there's one in West Virginia that does tours. There's one in Michigan that they were in the process of turning into like housing and shopping and all this stuff that was like, they were offering tours of the unupdated part. There's one in Buffalo that's been turned into a hotel and convention center that I went and stayed at.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Haunted.
Yeah. Oh, I was one of the first, like it had been open for a couple of months when I went and stayed there. And there were very few people there that were not staff. And it looked like it hadn't really fully been like set up yet. It was a really wild experience. But anyway,
wild.
If you haven't been in one of those buildings, there is a certain, I can't imagine this movie having the same authenticity for the people in the movie filming it on a soundstage. There is an echo in those places.
Right,
there's a color palette. There, like a lot of it is stuff that there's a feeling of those like 12-inch thick walls that, and the giant like 3 by 6 foot windows that I can't imagine is easy to recreate on a soundstage. I don't think this is the same movie at all if it's not filmed there.
I think so. And I just keep saying, like, this character's just, it feels so lived in. Like, they really feel part of it. And I can't imagine that feels the same if you are leaving your soundstage and driving to your home or your hotel in Hollywood. Like, it just doesn't. I
will say I read an interview with the director who was effusive about his sound people. Because apparently there was like a road right outside and there was traffic going by and it was really echoey in the buildings. And he said like the sound people were incredible and we barely had to do any like ADR like uptakes.
I think he said 10 lines in the whole movie and otherwise the sound was perfect.
Yeah, which is crazy because those buildings fucking echo. But anyway, so you'll hear more from me about Kirkbride buildings next week. That sounds like a joke, but it isn't. But let's talk about the cast a little bit.
Wow,
yes. Well, we'd already started talking about our friend Danny DeVito as Martini.
His first real...
A lot of first real roles for people in this.
well, that's another, to go back to Foreman and his feeling on this movie, is one reason is that he really, like he said, he wanted people who were less known. But the other thing he said, again, just, I love how pragmatic he is. So he was like, I wanted, like, they all had to look really different, basically. Mm-hmm. And that's why you get these really interesting looking actors, I think, because he's like, it's got to be, you've got to understand quickly, because these people are less, because it's really Jack Nicholson and Louise Fletcher's movie. Yeah. You kind of need to be able to differentiate these men really quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. So
they have to be very identifiable. Mm-hmm. Also, I read that they saw about 900 people for 35 roles. And then when they got it down to about 100, they would do these like screen tests / group therapy sessions where they would put groups of them together to see how they interacted. And that was part of how they narrowed it down.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. My favorite Danny DeVito anecdote, which I'm sure you probably also read, was that during the shooting, which was extremely demanding, and he was 3,000 miles away from home, he developed the coping mechanism of an imaginary friend.
I didn't read that.
Yeah. He would have nightly chats with this imaginary friend. And he actually sought the advice of the doctor, who was the doctor in the movie and the doctor in real life, because he was concerned about his own mental state, that his sanity might be leaving him. Dr. Brooks said that, there's no reason to worry as long as he could still identify the character as fictional.
Good.
So,
great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But he had an imaginary friend.
That's really cute.
While he was filming. It was also Christopher Lloyd's first film role.
Jodie.
Can I say something without people getting mad?
Exactly. This whole movie is like a hear me out cake. Like, I couldn't, again, as a younger person, I couldn't appreciate the unconventional attractiveness of some of the men in this movie.
Christopher Lloyd was hot.
I know. A real Frankenstein kind of guy.
Yeah, a lunk of a man.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, as a child of the 80s, Christopher Lloyd to me will always be Doc Brown.
Doc Brown, yeah. Emmett Brown, yeah.
Yeah, always.
And or Reverend Jim from Taxi for me is how I fell in love with him first.
Yes.
But I fell in love with him in a much more platonic way then.
Yes. Yeah, Back to the Future for me was first, and then I watched Taxi on reruns on Nick and Night. But yeah.
Also, weirdly,
quite attractive.
Like, to double down on that, I will see your and my Christopher Lloyd and raise you a Vincent Schiavelli a little bit.
Which one?
Smoking Vincent Schiavelli. Oh, I can't wait to talk about him.
Oh, no, I'm not with you on that one.
Pale, smoker, looks kind of like a vampire.
Yeah,
I think it's because I know this is so mean to dearly departed Vincent Schiavelli, who I do love very much. Mm-hmm. But I think knowing, I didn't connect him to this movie until this watch through.
Right.
And his older years, he has a very interesting face as he gets older.
Even people like Danny DeVito, who I've seen a million times, does not look like what I think of Danny DeVito looking like in this. Christopher Lloyd, same thing. All of these actors, when they were so young, are quite almost unrecognizable from the iconic images we have of them later on. Schiavelli, famously of Death to Smoochy fame.
Death to Smoochy fame. He's the first ghost you meet on the train in Ghost. Mm-hmm. Most importantly to me, he's in one of my favorite episodes of X-Files, and he's in 2 episodes of Buffy. Mm-hmm. But he's in Humbug, which is the episode with all the circus performers. Okay. And he is the one who has this underdeveloped conjoined twin. So Lanny and Leonard are the names of them. And I love that episode.
He also worked extensively with Milos Forman. He was in a lot of his films. He was in, his first film role was in Taking Off, which was his 1971 movie. He was in Amadeus. He was in People vs. Larry Flint. He was in Man on the Moon. He worked with him repeatedly over the years.
He's fantastic. I really, really love him.
Yeah, he is. He's great in this. Sadly, had passed away almost 20 years ago now.
I know. I couldn't believe that. It seemed, I remember it.
Yeah.
But
that's crazy. Mm-hmm. Christopher Lloyd, just one little note on him. extremely long career, still working, still doing interesting things. The one thing that I wrote down was in April of 2022, it was announced that he was going to star in Spirit Halloween the movie. Were you aware of Spirit Halloween the movie?
No.
Yeah, it was produced
Lloyd.
in partnership with the retailer, Spirit Halloween.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. He plays Alec Windsor, a wealthy land developer who disappeared one Halloween night and whose spirit is said to haunt the town in which the film is set each year on Halloween. The film was released on VOD in 2022.
Oh.
So you can't win them all. You know, you've got Back to the Future, One Flew at the Cuckoo's Nest, and Spirit Halloween the movie.
Yeah.
You know, if that's not a metaphor for a creative life.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah. He's Max Tabor for us in this.
One of the only involuntarily committed.
Right. We have Brad Dourif as Billy Bibbit. He's amazing in this.
He's so good.
Heartbreaking.
Just immediately in love with him.
Yeah.
Poor sweet boy.
Yeah. And also, though, poor sweet boy, and also a little bit unsettling in his childlike, like, obsession with women.
Yeah.
Like, a little, we would say these days, like, incel vibes.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that we can blame his mother for that because it's not until Ratched threatens to tell his mom.
Right.
He's also...
I had forgotten they absolutely blame her for him killing himself.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, yeah, she's a bitch to him and is psychologically manipulating him, but, like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's not Nicholson, or that it's not McMurphy who, like... It's funny because they really play it that way because McMurphy's the one who encourages it and kind of pushes him, like, rolls him into the room with her, even though he clearly is, like... anxious about it.
Yeah.
But then they do this thing where he comes, he wakes up in the morning and he's like proud and the guys are cheering him on. And it's not until she says she's right. But
she's going to tell his mom.
So it's her fault.
Sure. He is famously, most famous, I think, as the voice of Chucky. Wild turn. I just read a really great sentence. It said, on April 18th, 2024, Dourif announced that he would be retiring from acting, with the exception of any Chucky-related projects involving the character.
He just loves Chucky so much. Wow, that's really great.
It says the reason behind this was because his daughter Fiona, who plays a character in the franchise, is in it, and I guess he considers the Chucky franchise to be a part of his family.
Hilarious.
I know you didn't watch The Pit, but his daughter, Fiona, is one of the main characters on the TV show The Pit. And so he had a guest role in that in one episode.
That's cute. I'm going to have to watch The Pit.
You're going to have to watch The Pit.
He also is in an episode of The X-Files, a really significant one. Mm-hmm. He's Lee Boggs, who is, it's a little Silence of the Lambs-ish. He's a serial killer that Mulder captures or apprehend, whatever, or like before the start of the show, who then claims to have psychic abilities and is kind of like helping Mulder and Scully sort of on a case trying to catch another serial killer. And it's a significant episode because it's got a lot to do with like Scully's dad who has passed and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Who else do we want to talk about? William Redfield is kind of a sad story.
Yeah.
He played Dale Harding. He was quite sick during the movie, and he was actually, I think, diagnosed by the doctor that they had on set.
I read a few different versions of this. One was that I read Dr. Brooks himself, who's the quote, diagnosed him on set. I think what actually happened was he recognized the symptoms.
Yeah.
And it turned out that the actor and his wife already knew. And in fact, it was early enough in the shooting that they thought about replacing him, and they begged to keep him. And he
passed away like less than a year after the filming wrapped.
Yeah.
Of leukemia.
Sad.
Yeah. And actually, we should talk a little bit, very briefly, I think, about the alt casting, because Nicholson's role was offered to so many people. And a lot of them, similar to some of the other films we've talked about, really regretted saying no after the fact. Gene Hackman, James Caan, Burt Reynolds, Marlon Brando. I mean, again, like, this movie comes out and you're like, well, shit.
Fuck.
Big mistake.
It feels like such a Nicholson role, though.
Yeah.
Because you've got to be rough around the edges, but also charming. Like, and I don't know that any of those guys have that sort of, like, sleazy enough, but also...
I mean, we just saw James Caan. Like, it doesn't seem to fit. Gene Hackman apparently was the favorite of at least one person involved in production. I guess I could maybe, I don't know. It's hard to separate Jack Nicholson from this role at this point, even though he does not look like the description of McMurphy in the book.
He's a big ginger with a beard. And, yeah. It's really hard to separate, obviously, because he makes this so his role, but
yeah.
He's got the exact right hair for this role, not as it's described in the book, but it's just exactly right. Also, apparently this again feels so quintessentially a Nicholson role, but apparently this was the first one where he really sort of played this kind of character.
Right. Like almost impish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not to interrupt the flow, should we do a little plot summary? Briefly, even though this is a 50-year-old book movie.
Yeah. So, R.P. McMurphy, Randall Patrick McMurphy, shows up at this hospital, this mental hospital, from a, work prison. Mm-hmm. But mostly, it seems, because he doesn't want to work. So he's being sent to be evaluated to see, because he's been a real troublemaker there.
Yeah.
And I think he thinks he's just going to, wait out his... time 68 days by pretending to be a little cuckoo at this hospital. He very quickly meets Nurse Ratched, who runs this place with a firm but seemingly for the most part gentle hand. And they quickly butt heads.
Right.
He's bet $1 that he can get a bug so far up her ass, I forget what the line is.
Right.
She won't know whether to something or whatever. And it just escalates. And so as he's trying to get to get the best of her, she's trying to get the best of him. All of the men that he's becoming friendlier with, it seems like he's trying to encourage them to embrace their free spirit and to push back a little bit. Seems to me, I was tracking it this time, it's all for selfish reasons, though. That's whatever. I'm editorializing. I shouldn't be doing that now.
Well...
Like I said, McMurphy thinks he's just waiting out his 68 days. He finds out that because his commitment isn't voluntary, he doesn't get to decide when he leaves. It had not occurred to him until he's well established in this battle of wills with Nurse Ratched that he has no power to remove himself. And you find out one of the things that's important here is one of the major treatments at this hospital is electroconvulsive therapy, which we've talked about a bunch on this podcast. At one point, McMurphy acts out in some way that gets him a treatment. He comes back. He pretends to be zombified for a second. And then proves that he's too strong, I guess, to be overtaken by that is what the implication is. And then he's planning his escape, him and Chief Bromden, who is this, we think, deaf and dumb Native American. We find out, I shouldn't say dumb, that's also inappropriate, but that's how they describe him in the movie.
Mute.
Dumb, mute. He doesn't, nonverbal, I think, is more appropriate now. And we find out that he can talk, so he and McMurphy are planning their escape to Canada. They have one last party in the hospital. Everybody passes out and falls asleep. Nurse Ratched shows up. It's a whole big thing. She finds out that Billy Bibbit, who's this sweet, like you said, generally pretty sweet but troubled young man, has had sex with McMurphy's girlfriend, friend/prostitute, hard to say.
Candy.
Yeah, Candy.
Of course her name's Candy.
Ratched threatens to tell Bibbit's mom. Bibbit kills himself. And that causes, whatever the cause and effect here is, McMurphy to finally physically attack Ratched.
Her. Yeah.
He gets lobotomized.
Yeah.
He comes back. Chief Broom, because he sees this man's broken spirit, despite the wild stallion nature of him, whatever, smothers him with a pillow, breaks out of the hospital. And the last scene is him escaping.
Yeah. And he knows that, he's going to be basically a prisoner of his body for the rest of his life. Yeah, I think...
That's the movie, right?
That's the movie with a boat trip in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
The little outing, which, again, to me, read as, like, the fact that no one died on that boat trip is very lucky.
Yeah, totally.
Like, yeah. He's very... I feel like it's selfishness disguised as anti-conformist, like trying to shake up the status quo of these men's lives.
Yeah, I think that's true. I just can't think of a single instance where he doesn't encourage the men to act out that doesn't have something to do with what he wants. It's to watch a baseball game, like...
Yeah. Well, and he also doesn't think at all. Either doesn't know and understand or doesn't care about the consequences for the other men.
That's right.
Of his actions. Because if he, like, there's the scene where he's encouraging them all to vote to watch the World Series. Mm-hmm. And the first time, only 2 other people vote with him. And to me, my reading on that is like, they're not fucking with Nurse Ratched. They would rather not rock the boat.
Yep.
They would rather not change the rules. A, because they like the rules. Because the rules make them feel safe. Mm-hmm. And also, they just know that there are going to be consequences for trying to shake things up beyond the point that the staff is comfortable with.
Right. And I think it would be different if they weren't voluntarily committed. Because then I'm like, okay, it's not really up to them. Like, maybe it is worth putting your foot down if you feel... But, like, again, like you said... They're here because they feel safe here.
Yeah.
Let them...
Yeah. There's a point later on where Charlie Cheswick is freaking out about her rationing his cigarettes. And you're like, oh, well, why is she rationing his cigarettes? That's kind of weirdly controlling for no reason. And you find out it's because fucking McMurphy has won everyone's money and everyone's cigarettes.
Right,
and so
exactly.
she's trying to mitigate them losing everything to him by, like, rationing them out. Mm-hmm. Other folks that we could highlight... we have Will Sampson as Chief Bromden, who was not an actor before this.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The story goes, Michael Douglas was sitting next to somebody on a plane who was a...
Mel Lambert.
Who is the boat guy in the movie. He's got like a little cameo there.
Yep. I think it's called a harbor master, Andrea.
Oh, pardon me. Not boat guy?
The boat guy. Yeah,
the boat guy. Was worked at a used car dealership or a car dealership.
Yep.
And encountered a lot of Native American men who would come in and, I guess maybe women too. I don't know. I'm assuming 1975, probably not too many women.
We couldn't have our own credit cards, remember?
And yeah, that's right. And Michael Douglas mentioned that he needed to find a really gigantic man.
Yeah.
And months later, apparently, Mel?
Yep, Mel Lambert
called him. And the line is, I found the biggest son of a bitch I've ever seen.
Yeah. He was apparently a park ranger in Oregon, near where the movie was filmed.
He's 6'5". But it's really fun to see his IMDb because he does One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and then he just keeps working.
Yeah.
He says, did you see his paintings?
No.
Oh my God, he's an incredible painter. I saw him talking on set and he was like, first and foremost, before anything else, I'm a painter.
Wow.
Apparently
that's cool.
his like paintings are, in the Smithsonian. Like,
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Although the Wikipedia says he's 6'7".
Oh,
I saw 6'5" elsewhere too, but yeah.
I like the idea of a guy who's 6'5", like still lying about his height and adding a couple inches.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Good for him.
Yeah, really incredible painter.
He passed away somewhat young.
Yeah.
In his 50s.
I have such a fun fact related to him, but I'll save it for the end.
Okay.
My littlest fact about one of the actors is also a Jersey reference. My littlest fun fact. And it's that Josip Elick, I guess maybe that's how you say his name. I don't actually know. He was Bancini in the movie. Mm-hmm. Born in Montana. Do you know where he died?
River Edge, New Jersey.
River Edge, New Jersey.
Home of the River Edge Diner.
That's right.
I do know that. I didn't write it down because I was like, that's really important where the guy died, I guess. But yes.
It counts.
He died
totally
at River
counts.
Edge. Yeah.
Also, Scatman Crothers and Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
King of Marvin Gardens together.
Yep, The Shining.
Then One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Then The Shining. I love Scatman Crothers. Most importantly to me is Scat Cat in The Aristocats.
Yes. Tons of voice acting.
Totally.
He did a lot. I mean, his resume is very, very long. He's also a pretty accomplished musician. But the voice acting list is insane.
Yeah. I mean, he's got that voice. It totally...
Yeah. My favorite Small fact is that Maria Small, who played Candy, who has gone by many names, including Muse Small, she also was in The Shining.
Died in River Edge? Oh, okay.
No, she also died in River Edge. No, she was also in The Shining. And she also ran as the Natural Law Party nominee for the U.S. House of Representatives for California's 25th District in 2000.
Oh.
The National Law Party is a transnational party founded in 1992 on the principles of transcendental meditation.
Huh.
Yeah, that's my favorite fun fact.
That's a fun little connection to Andy Kaufman, Man on the Moon. He was really, really into transcendental meditation.
Yeah. Oh, my fun fact about Joseph Alec Bancini, besides the River Edge thing, is that he had a small part in the mixed up files of Mrs. Bosley Frankenwheeler in 1973.
I love that.
Yeah. So, all right. Beyond the little fun facts, let's talk about Louise Fletcher a little bit.
Oh.
Okay.
So funny.
All over the place.
I know, but
it's okay.
You said the thing about Muse Small being into...
transcendental, yeah.
She's the TM administrator in Man on the Moon.
There you go.
So.
It's all connected.
Mm-hmm. I'll bet she knew Andy Kaufman.
Yeah. I'm sure she did. Cue the red string image. Are you looking up if she knew Andy Kaufman?
Yeah, there's an article called When Muse Knew Andy.
There you go. So Louise Fletcher as Nurse Ratched. A lot of other people were also considered for the part. Same thing as the Jack Nicholson part. Angela Lansbury, Ellen Burstyn, Anne Bancroft, Jane Fonda. Lily Tomlin was originally cast as Nurse Ratched, which is just a wild thing to imagine. But again, the director started getting interested in having Louise Fletcher play the part, and they ended up switching roles, basically. Lily Tomlin was cast in Cuckoo's Nest, and Louise Fletcher was cast in Nashville, and they ended up basically swapping parts.
You gotta love that.
Yeah.
How tiny.
Yeah, very easy to...
It is fascinating that Muse Small... I'm so sorry. It is fascinating that Muse Small was so connected to the TM movement that she knew Andy Kaufman and then was in Man on the Moon, directed by Milos Forman.
And was Candy.
Yeah, that's wild.
In this movie. I know.
Totally separate. I mean, I'm sure, connected, but I mean, it's not like she was just casted in Man on the Moon because or the other way around. The fact that both of those things happen parallel is fascinating.
I can see the red string flying around your head.
I know.
I will say, so Louise Fletcher, I think, would support our conversation about her character and our reevaluation of her character because she does believe, obviously, that this character is doing bad things. She said it's no coincidence that her hair resembles the horns of the devil to show you how wicked she is. But she said, making Ratched a human being was no small feat. You know nothing about her history, unlike McMurphy. I didn't want to make her a monster. I wanted to make her believable as a real person in those circumstances. I drew on the misuse of power, a prominent issue in those times with Nixon having been forced to resign. I saw very clearly how people can believe they're doing good and they know best.
Right. And that does feel, again, until she starts getting, which I can understand, I might have acted the same way, vindictive and petty with McMurphy. You really do. Every time she explains something to him, I'm like, oh yeah, yep, that makes sense. Yeah. Yep, I'm with you. She's the one who gave Ratched a first name.
Yes. Yeah.
And Nicholson asked her on set, what do you think her name is? And she said Mildred. And that's when later on when he comes back and he says, hello, Mildred. It's such a little, but she's also the only one who even...
grandmother's name and the person I got my middle name from.
Do you think that's why Louise Fletcher picked Mildred?
Because she knew my grandmother?
Yeah.
Maybe.
But it's... So the fact that because she doesn't have a first name in the book.
No.
In fact, she's called Big Nurse as much as she's called Nurse Ratched in the book.
Right.
And I heard her talking about it too, and she was like, my only real worry about doing this, kind of thinking about what we were talking about earlier, is like, I wanted to feel powerful enough in this role. And I think that says a lot about, like you said, her being this kind of piece in this machine, and the lack of power that women had at the time, at the time, that she was aware of that.
Yeah. I mean, being a young, relatively attractive woman working on a psychiatric ward full of male patients.
Right.
If you're actually thinking about that in a realistic sense, the amount of harassment and abuse that woman went through on a daily basis is fucking wild. Like, if you're going to think about that in terms of, like, this not as a parable for modern society, but as, like, a person's experience.
Right. You'd have to
be really, controlled.
That's right.
Yeah. In interviews later on in her life, she said that she decided for herself that Nurse Ratched actually did care about her patients and felt she was doing what was best for them, but ultimately became kind of misguided and drunk on her own power.
That feels true enough to me. I really am on her side through so much of this.
I know. I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's true.
Again, if you don't think about it as a metaphor or an allegory, if you just are watching this movie as, like you said, a sort of personality play where we get to watch all these people interact.
Absolutely. I have sympathy for her. Should we talk about the reception of the movie? Mm-hmm. So because it got all these Academy Award nominations and made so much money, I assumed that it had been, like, completely beloved by all the critics. And, I mean, you know, our friend Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars, but...
Oh, did he give it 4?
He gave it 4 stars, but this is also one of the more insightful reviews of his.
I see 3 out of 4. I think he did a second review later.
Oh.
I think I read that somewhere, but in 75 he gave it 3.
Okay. All right, because I was looking at the one from 2003, I guess.
That makes sense.
So when he revisited it, so we often have mentioned how he can be a little blockheaded about movies that deal with, like, women's emotions sometimes. Mm-hmm. He was remarkably sharp in this review I found of his from 2003. So maybe if you want to talk a little bit about the 75 one and I can update it.
Okay, yeah. He says, it's so good in so many of its parts that there's a temptation to forgive it when it goes wrong. Mm-hmm. I agree. I have fallen for that temptation myself in the past. But it does go wrong, insisting on making larger points than its story really should carry, so that at the end, the human qualities of the characters get lost in the significance of it all. And yet there are those moments of brilliance. Mm-hmm. He says... it's a lot easier to make noble points about fighting the establishment, about refusing to surrender yourself to the system, than it is to closely observe the ways real people behave when they're placed in an environment like a mental institution. And I do think those two things are a little at odds here, and I think that's probably what Kesey took issue with, and what we sort of see is that, like, they're sort of making those points, but removing the aspects of the story that actually support and illustrate those points, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't say too much about Ratched in this.
Okay.
I do quite like the way he talks about the scene after Billy sleeps with the prostitute. As Nurse Ratched surveys the damage, Billy at first defies her, speaking without a stutter, which is too obvious. And then caves in when she threatens to tell his mother what he's done. Nurse Ratched and Billy's mother are old friends, you see. Again, too obvious, pinning the rap on Freud and Mom, which I agree.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of with him there.
He kind of goes back to that analysis a little bit more in the 2003 review. What I liked that he said was, the movie's simplistic approach to mental illness is not really a fault of the movie because it has no interest in being about insanity. Mm-hmm. It is about a free spirit and a closed system. Nurse Ratched, who is so inflexible, so unseeing, so blandly sure she is right, represents momism at its radical extreme. And McMurphy is the Huck Finn who wants to break loose from her version of civilization. This is the line where I was like, okay, Roger Ebert. He said, the movie is, among other things, profoundly fearful of women. The only two portrayed positively are McMurphy's hooker friends, his words, not mine, Candy and Rose. But then he has to qualify it. He says, I mean this as an observation, not a criticism. Roger Ebert, you are a critic. So I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, but okay.
Also would be a fair criticism.
Exactly.
What do you... Don't worry, I don't mean it as a bad thing.
Right. Wild. But apparently at the time, the other two that we often quote, Variety and New York Times, were both sort of like qualified positive reviews. Mm-hmm. They weren't like over the moon about it. They recognized some of its flaws. I
was sort of surprised, like you said, that people seem to be pretty thoughtful.
Yeah, because it's on every list now. It's on like AFI lists. Mm-hmm. It was deemed culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress. Mm-hmm. It was preserved at the National Film Registry. Like, it's on every list.
And I do think it's deserved. If for any reason, the performances are just outstanding in this movie. It's
absolutely a significant movie culturally, historically, and aesthetically. Like, that is a true statement.
Right.
Also served as the inspiration for Metallica's song Sanitarium, which I didn't realize, on Master of Puppets.
That's so funny.
A song that I definitely rode around in a minivan in high school listening to with my friends.
Perfect.
There's only been one sanctioned spinoff since this came out, which was 2020, the series Ratched. Only ran one season. Douglas has said on the record, it was okay. Just okay. I wasn't very much involved, to be honest. I didn't watch it. I don't know if you did.
I watched the first couple of episodes, and I don't remember anything about it, if that tells you anything.
Okay. Yeah, it does.
Did you read what was just announced, though, last month?
I did, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. So Deadline in July posted an article called Official One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest spin-off series in the works from the point of view of Chief Bromden. Interesting. Mm-hmm. The producer is Paul Zentz, the nephew of the film's original producer. He says, just now I've signed an agreement with Ken Kesey's widow to develop a TV series which will make through the point of the view of the chief for the first season. Following the first season, we'll see what happens to the chief after he escapes from the psychiatric hospital. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Me too. There's not a lot more about it than that. Nobody's attached to write or produce. There's no studio connected to it. So we'll see where that leads, if anywhere. Would be interesting. Possibly. Or horrible. I guess we'll find out. But yeah, that was just last month that came out.
We can't help ourselves.
I know. We keep hitting anniversaries of these things too. I think because it was the 50th anniversary, there was a lot of chatter about this film this year.
That's right. Only other thing I have is this movie is referenced in a billion things.
Yeah.
I have two that I'd like to share.
Yeah.
Is there anything pop up for you before I...
I think they're the same ones that you are about to mention.
Oh, okay. So the first one is the Simpsons episode Stark Raving Dad, which I have such a clear memory of from when I was a kid because I was obsessed as a child with Michael Jackson. Mm-hmm. And it's an episode where Homer goes to a mental hospital because he wears a pink shirt to work. And so for his nonconformist, it's like something red gets in the laundry and turns his white work shirt pink. So they send him to a mental hospital. And his roommate is a guy who thinks he's Michael Jackson, and he's voiced by Michael Jackson.
Right. I remember that.
And so, when he first gets there, like you can line up the shot of all of the inmates, like down to the patient in the wheelchair who hits the punching bag with his cane in the movie. That's happening. That's happening in the episode. And then the other one, which is so fun, is Sweetie has a heart attack. I think it's season 3 or 4 of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which Danny DeVito obviously is a big part of. And in it, one of the subplots is him at a mental hospital. And he wakes up in the hospital, and sitting across from him is a Native American man on a bed. Mm-hmm. And Danny convinces him, or Frank convinces him, to throw a water fountain through windows so he can escape. That actor is Tim Sampson. Will Sampson's son.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. I love that it's Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
Like, everything about it is, I just love that so much.
Red string.
That's right.
It's awesome. I feel like, I mean, I know that there's, like, we could talk about this movie and the backstory and everything forever, but I think for our purposes, that's kind of what we wanted to cover. Mm-hmm. Which sets us up to finally...
I think I could be so stubborn that I would get myself lobotomized to prove a point.
We could do a whole podcast on the rise of the ice pick lobotomy.
Oh, hell yeah. Also, I know we make this disclaimer all the time, and I know that it was much less humane back then, but the sort of like demonization, vilification of ECT,
yes,
when it still is used, though typically under anesthesia and with muscle relaxers, so it's pretty safe, and I shouldn't say pretty safe, it's for all intents and purposes safe and really effective for a lot of people. Famously Gary Gulman, who struggled for
it's used for people with treatment-resistant depression.
That's right. And and a lot of those... Gary Gulman says it, like, literally saved his life. He did an episode of one of my other podcasts, not with me on it, the one that I produce, and said, like, not only do I feel better, I feel the best I've ever felt in my entire life. He's, like, a real proponent of it.
And it's not, none of these treatments that we have for mental illness are perfect by any stretch. Like, I know people in my own life who have had it, and its effects can fade over time, and you might need to do it again, and it's not,
like you said, like any other treatment, results vary.
Antidepressants, like, people take them and they stop working and all of that, or it's hard to find the right one, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not saying everybody should go get it done. I want to push back against, because I still hear people talk about it as if it's barbaric,
like medieval barbaric torture, and is no longer happening. So.
We are going to take a firm stance, though, against ice pick lobotomies on this podcast. Well, firmly anti.
Might fix me.
I mean, it would certainly fix some things, but maybe not in the way that we hope. Anyway, all of that said, this leads us to a very important moment in this podcast for me.
I feel like you've been talking about this since day one.
I've built it up way too much at this point. Like, there's no way it's going to be anything but a disappointment. But
maybe for you.
Yeah. So we are going to follow this up with a movie that is not on this list, but absolutely should be.
Makes no sense that it's not.
Yeah, I mean, even in terms of like who is in the movie, I'm not going to do the like, guess what it is? We're watching Girl Interrupted. Winona Ryder, Angelina Jolie, Clea Duvall, Brittany Murphy, Elizabeth Moss. It's just it's important to me in a very different way than a lot of the other movies have been, in terms of like, I have emotional connections to a lot of the other movies. This movie, I feel like, was a text I studied. Like, not just the architecture like we talked about with the Kirkbride buildings, but the way that women's mental health is treated differently, and the paternalism of this whole system. And like, I've made 2 pieces about this movie. It's just such an interesting text. I will try to avoid getting too JSTOR but I can't promise anything, because I have actual JSTOR articles already without doing any new research on this movie.
Our podcast. You can do whatever you want. It's such a perfect pairing, I think, because isn't it, what year?
So
it's set in the what?
67.
Okay.
Yeah.
So pretty close.
Yeah, in New England, other side of the country. It's filmed, though, at Harrisburg State Hospital, which is another Kirkbride building.
Cool.
Yeah. One that I haven't been to. I think it's gone now. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. This, to me, like, as I was rewatching Cuckoo's Nest, I kept thinking of all of the things in this movie that are either echoes of or reflections, opposites of things in that movie. So this came out in 99, sort of the height of the Winona Ryder sans. It's not a renaissance, though. It's her original,
her naissance.
Yes. Her rise to stardom. Very big role. Let me take that again. Important role for Angelina Jolie in this movie. So I'm excited to talk about it. I could record this right now without doing any research, which is also nice. But I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I don't know. I also, even just glancing at some of the easily accessible information, like it did not get amazing reviews, which surprises me. Again,
you and I are always surprised.
I know. Always surprised. But also another movie that the original author was not excited about. So, yeah. So that's next week. We're going to stay in the gentle but scary confines of Thomas Story Kirkbride for a little bit longer. What was that face you just made?
Just an incredible review.
Oh, boy. Save it.
I'll save it. Brutal, though, Jodie.
Oh, boy. Can't wait. But yeah, so we will dive into that next week. In the meantime, where can they find us?
We're at WatchersPodNJ on Instagram, WatchersPodNJ at Gmail. I'm at AQ Andrea Q.
And I am at Jodie_Mim, JODIE_MIM on Instagram. And we'll see you next week in New England.
Bang yourself in the head, get in the car, go to New Jersey.
Go to New Jersey! Oh, I'm so glad you remembered that.
I'll never forget.
Oh my God, that's great. That is definitely how we should end this podcast for the rest of time.
For always and forever, absolutely.
Yes, and now I will remember it next time.